weeks to go until Prince Caspian comes out. It's unbelievable. It's been over 6 years since I first heard that they were making The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe into a movie. It's been 2.5 years since The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe movie came out, and I've been doing these videos for a year, and it's just unbelievable that we're this close. Like, look how far we've come with all the discussion, all the controversy, all the rumors, and actually go visit the set, and it's all come down to this, and it's kind of it's really exciting, of course, but it's kind of sad too that it's coming to an end. But I want to talk about the new, well, it's not really new anymore, but the Disney Channel movie surfer video that's hosted by those annoying people. But there are some very interesting bits. Some of it's encouraging, some of it's not. But I think it's kind of cheesy how Peter's like, how long does he expect us to wait? And he's talking about Aslan, presumably, when they're on the platform. It seems a little bit cheesy that, as they're talking about, when are we going to return to Narnia? We're in Narnia! That just seems a little bit cheesy. I guess it kind of mirrors what happens in The Silver Chair, where Jill and Eustace are talking about it, and then, then the bullies chase them into another world. Although I think the context is very different. I mean, when Jill and Eustace actually went into the other world, they didn't actually get pulled into Narnia. They were running away from bullies, and when they got to the door, Narnia was the last thing on their mind. They were just looking for an escape. And here it's like they're just sitting there and they get whisked off to Narnia. And so it just seems kind of a cheesy idea. And I don't really like the whole idea of it was a rough year for them, going back to being a kid after being a king for so long. That just doesn't really seem relevant to the story. Those aren't the kind of questions you ask when you're in Narnia. I mean, it's a fairy tale. The way it's told, it's like those kind of issues aren't really relevant, in my opinion. I don't like Minotaurs being in this film, but I like Caspian's line of Minotaurs, they're real, and I just like that whole. I like the mixture of joy and fear in his performance. I think that's certainly something in that scene in the Prince Caspian book of Caspian is, there's this mixture of it's this joy of old Narnia, like it's all true, everything the doctor told me is true, and then there's this fear of wow, it's all true, all these creatures are real, and so I love the mixture of joy and fear in his Ben Barnes performance. I think there's so many little things in this, even though there's some controversial things obviously you've heard about. There's a lot of little things where I go, oh, that just so captures what Prince Caspian is about. And I think the next one too of Lucy saying, looking at the trees and saying they're so still. And Trumpkin says, the trees, what do you expect? His voice is so deep. And she says, they used to dance. Then he just kind of gives her this, whatever, kind of look. And, I think they're really choosing to emphasize the sadness of the old days being gone more so than in the book, which I think is fine. I think that's really, the book that's really embodied in Caspian's character, where Caspian, he has this great longing for the old days to return. For the Pevensies, I think it's more of an excitement of we're back. But here I think they're making it more of a sad thing of, that it's sad that the old days are gone and now Narnia is under an evil ruler and everything. And but I think that's a really kind of a touching scene that once again just kind of captures what Prince Caspian is about. I like that Caspian has that line, you're supposed to be extinct. Once again, joy and fear in his voice, I think, at the same time. Then Nickabrick in his recognizably Warwick Davis voice says, sorry to disappoint you, which is kind of funny. I like that line. But you're supposed to be extinct. That line implies to me that it seems to support the idea that I had a couple of videos back that they've changed Miraz's public position on this one. In the book, Miraz's public position, whatever he actually feels is a different issue. But he publicly maintains that all these stories aren't true. The Fawns and Peter and Susan, Edmund and Lucy and Aslan, that was all a fairy tale, totally made up, all for babies. He might not actually believe that, but that's his public position. And in Narnia at this time, if you don't believe that, you're getting, look what happened to Nurse. You could get sent away or possibly even killed for not believing that. And but Caspian says you're supposed to be extinct, which implies that, well, once again, seems to support the idea that he believes it once existed. It's like if you saw a dinosaur in your backyard, and you would say you're supposed to be extinct because dinosaurs don't exist anymore, and so but they used to, and so that just seems like, now it could be that Dr. Cornelius has told him about it, and in the book, Dr. Cornelius isn't really sure if there are any old Narnians left. He's not really sure, and so it could just be that Caspian believes they once existed and says, you're supposed to be extinct just based on what the doctors told him, and so that's very possible. I hate that kind of awkward moment between Caspian and Susan, where Caspian first meets the Pevensies. Then he says, maybe it's just the editing in this clip, but he says, you're not exactly what I expected, and and then he kind of gives Susan this awkward look, like I didn't expect you to be so sexy. Is kind of the vibe I got from it, and it's just unbelievable. There are some encouraging things about Prince Caspian, but this is not one of them. Like. It's still hard to believe that Narnia Web posted this as an April Fool's joke a couple of years ago about that there was going to be a Caspian Susan romance. And it was, people freaked out, of course, because we knew that would be terrible. And here we are, it's actually going to happen. Like, you almost have to wonder, I don't think this happened, but if someone from the crew saw that and said, "Oh, that'd be a great idea," but and I'm sorry, Narnia fans, if that's what happened. We were just posting it as a joke. We didn't want that to actually happen. That's the reason we posted, is we knew that would be ridiculous. And now here it is. It's actually in the movie, and it's just not a part of Narnia. This kind of thing. This should not be in here. And it's so cheesy, like, oh, let's have Caspian and Susan hook up. And we know it's not going to be, from the official companion. We know it's not going to be a full-fledged thing, and actually, I believe the official companion is kind of the first official comment on the Caspian Susan romance from the actual crew, where they've actually, Douglas Gresham, avoided that and said, if I were you, I would worry more about global warming. That's what Douglas Gresham said when Narnia Web interviewed him. That's why I always refer to whenever I talk about global warming, I'm referring to the Caspian Susan romance, by the way, in case you guys don't know. But so now it looks like what Gresham really meant by that was, don't worry, it'll be okay. Yeah, there's kind of a romance in there, but it'll be okay. In the official companion, they said that Susan develops a slight crush on Caspian, and it's nothing passionate, but there is a crush. So there you go. It's not as bad as our April Fool's joke was, but it's still pretty cheesy and bad. And it's just, this is definitely something I'm going to be talking about a lot, I think, in my review. It's just so cheesy, and how he saves her and everything, and I don't understand this. I hope I feel different somehow when I see it in context, but it seems extremely cheesy. Then there's a line at the end of where Caspian says, 2 days ago, I did not believe in the existence of fauns or centaurs, or dwarves or centaurs. And in this scene, it's kind of loosely based on a line in the book where Caspian says, where in the book he says that he's telling why he believes in Aslan, and it's because he says that the same people who would have said that dwarves didn't exist would have also said that Aslan didn't exist, and yet here you are. And so I think this is kind of loosely based on that line in the book, and I really like that. And I'm glad that they're really emphasizing that part of Prince Caspian, of the myth that's come alive, that what we thought was real, and it's real. All these characters that we know so well from the first movie are now, it's debated if they ever even existed. I think that's a really cool concept. Caspian's accent is a lot thicker and more distracting than I thought. Obviously all we'd heard him say was, you will take back what is ours, and we'd heard him say, I'm Prince Caspian, 5 different times. But in that one, it seemed all right, and I liked the accent, actually, and I could even picture that in the book, that being it. But here it seems too thick to me. They need to pull it back some. It's going to be a big distraction. It might be just because I've heard Ben Barnes interviewed so many times, and maybe when I watch the movie after 5 minutes, I'll get used to it. But watching this clip, it seemed kind of distracting, like they needed to pull back. It also has made me wonder, what accent will Caspian have in Voyage of the Dawn Treader? I think it would kind of make sense if his accent wasn't as thick, because apparently the old Narnians had different accents, and so after 3 years of ruling the kingdom, it might have rubbed off on him some, and so I think it would kind of make sense if in Dawn Treader they pulled back on the accent a little bit. I like the idea of having a Telmarine accent, and in a lot of ways, it's everything Ben Barnes promised it was going to be when I interviewed him. That it's it's still has kind of a Spanish root, but it's an English intonation, he called it, and I kind of understand what he's talking about looking at this, and I think I like the idea of Caspian having his own accent instead of just making him an English accent. But really cool in this video to see the annoying Disney Channel guy visiting the courtyard set, the castle courtyard set, because I went there and we were completely in awe of that set. Just the video doesn't even do it justice how huge it was. So very cool to see that. But 5 weeks to go. I feel like I can't get enough videos here. There's so many things that are going through my mind. But just 5 weeks to go, and Prince Caspian will be here after all the discussions about Caspian's accent and his hair color and global warming and the White Witch. It's all come down to this. And so let's sit back and fasten your seatbelts for the last 5 weeks of the anticipation of Prince Caspian.